house. Why share something that you're not going to be able to share completely and fully, unless you just want the appearance of it?
Listen, we've got to change the subject because that wasn't the topic we were meant to talk about. That was not the topic we were supposed to talk about. But hey, listen, you guys were talking some real stuff, so I wanted to incorporate it. If you're just joining us, which obviously you guys it's offline, but if you're just joining us, obviously now you're probably watching this when it's Christmas time. But we're going to talk to you guys about modern woman, modern day problem. Right, so there's a little video that was going around with I think is it Tami Robinson? Is it Tami Robinson? Am I correct her name? That's it correctly. Who? Say again.
Tami
Roman, that's it. I knew I was close, but do you know what? Me and names, I've been slewing people's names. Listen, if I've ever announced you guys on the live stage, best believe I can say a name wrong. Yeah. So thank you for that, Sean. I appreciate that. Yeah. So Tami Roman, she was on the reel and she spoke a little bit about what she and her husband were planning to do, which was to, in a sense, kind of allow him to kind of get with someone. Well, that's how it sounded, right? To get with somebody else, have a child, and then kind of look after it. There was another video which I sent it to you guys, which was a bit more longer. She explained her position. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was still confused. I was still confused because I didn't know what the actual final point she was fully making. I think, and maybe you guys can correct me, and that would be helpful. What I think she was kind of saying was, due to that fact that obviously she's got health concerns, there's only 6 eggs. Having a child with her eggs would be a problem because the child would be potentially special needs, which I totally got. The part that I was still, I think what I felt like could have just been said straight was, so in order for you guys to have kids, what you're actually saying is he's got to find a surrogate who's not going to have your eggs, right? So in a sense, we're still in the same position. Now, he doesn't have to literally have sex with this woman, but this woman's going to have to use her eggs and his sperm, right? What I didn't get was because there was a whole narrative in between it, which was like, he's going to have to emotionally detach from helping her out, and he's going to have to spend time going to find a surrogate. And I was like, babe, I typed it in on Google. There is charities out there that will help you find a surrogate. So all this emotional detachment thing, it makes it sound like as if you were almost giving him a pass to go out there. And I think that's why it keeps happening. Confusion keeps happening. So I want to kind of get you guys' perspective because I heard a conversation. Listen, I heard the maddest conversation the other day, bro. Men, I'm telling you, after God fear women. Okay, all right. Listen, I heard the maddest conversation. So the conversation went like this, bro, and it's on the same lines about this topic about having a child. One of the girls I was talking to, she's speaking to me, talking about her friend, right? And she mentioned about the fact that her friend, first and foremost, wanted to have a child, but was willing to have sex to have the child. First and foremost, she wanted the kids to be light skinned, so you already know what color the woman was. Okay, you already know what color the woman is already. Yeah, that's the first part. That was like, okay, cool. But number 2, she was willing to, because she wanted to have a child, because she already had one. She's willing to have a second one she doesn't care if the father's going to be there or not. She just wants to have the second kid. And I was like, what manner of world are we now living in that we are? And this is bear in mind, we all agree that there are trash men out there who breed women, leave them, not look after them, don't provide for them. And we can clearly say this is a level of madness, right? For a man to do that, right? And we hold them accountable. We've now got women doing the very same thing. I shouldn't say the same thing. They're willing to look after children, but breed these children with intentional purpose of not having a father figure there. And so I wanted to get this conversation flowing to see what you fellas' thoughts are, right? So the first part we'll do with the Tami Roman conversation, and we'll drift into that second part. What are you saying, individual?
Bro, what is going on? What? Okay, so trying to bring my mind back to Tami Roman.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very confusing because it sounds like she's speaking from in, from in ooh, wow, English. It sounds like she's speaking from an insecurity because she is almost making it sound like she wants him to have something secure on his own just in case anything happens to her, or if she can't fulfill her wifely duty of being able to procure a child for him, a healthy child at that, right? um but then my question is also, okay, you're not sure if you're going to be able to produce a child with him even in surrogacy, because there's only 6 eggs, as she said. There's only 6 of them eggs, and you're not sure if all of them are going to be able to actually grow or if they're going to be healthy. Okay, cool. What happened to the option of adoption? Right? Like, of course, it may not necessarily be a child that comes from you, but in any scenario, it's not going to be optimal anyway. There are plenty of children that the both of you can come to a decision on, especially even like infants that you can definitely be able to search around for. And it's not like you don't have the means for it, because finding a surrogate or even an in vitro, those things are not cheap either, right? Like, it's not necessarily something that you can just do any day of the week. It's something that you actually have to plan for. So if that's the case, then adoption shouldn't be that far of a stretch either. What would be the issue with that, with that option, considering like things aren't necessarily optimal? So then if you're really um, harping on this point of, okay, I want a surrogate, and I want you to find the surrogate, as you said, there's definitely options for that, for the both of y'all to be able to choose someone in a legal manner, unless you don't want it to be legal, unless you want the person to be more emotionally invested in this so that you can maybe find a cheaper route. I'm not sure. Like, either way, I think the vagueness is on purpose. I think she specifically wanted to create the appearance of transparency without actually having to be vulnerable about what exactly is going on. And of course, people don't have to know your business, but if that's the case, keep it in house. Why share something that you're not going to be able to share completely and fully, unless you just want the appearance of looking a certain type of way, unless you want the appearance of, okay, I'm transparent and I'm strong and I want validation, I want affirmation, which just leads back to my original point of, okay, she's speaking from some sort of insecurity that's not being um, tended to properly, in which case there's a whole bunch of different problems going on behind that. And I think it's very interesting that, at least from what I've seen, I haven't heard from the husband. Why? You know what I mean? Like, if he has just as much of a say in this, and this is about the both of them, why aren't we hearing as much from the husband, but more, all the attention is on her? Perhaps she's getting more pressure, perhaps she's getting more heat. Either way, if that's the case, they should probably speak together as a unit, because it involves the both of them, unless it doesn't. You know what I mean? It sounds like most of this is surrounding her and how she feels, her thoughts, but she's still being purposefully vague. I don't see what the point of us knowing this information is.
I'm hearing that, bro. I'm hearing that, bro. That's a good point. Sean.
So this particular situation is one that is actually near and dear to me, because in my marriage we did go through different fertility measures. So when I didn't see the first like little 2-minute thing from the reel initially, but I saw when you shared with me, Kojo, the YouTube video, which she did expand on a lot, and I got clarity. And maybe my clarity as a man was more than anyone else's, probably like on the panel, because I've lived it. I've lived what that looks like, miscarriages, IVF, all of that stuff, freezing eggs, all of that. And it's a tough thing. It's a very tough thing on the woman. And as a man, it's tough as well. And our situations are similar in that my wife had 2 kids from a previous marriage, but I had no kids. So it was kind of like the same dynamics that played out. And now she wants to be in a position to give her husband kids. So what I took away from it is that now that they've had several miscarriages, they've tried a few different ways for her to be the carrier of the kids, and now they want to explore other options, and that includes surrogacy. Adoption is definitely an option, and I think a lot of people think about it. For me, it was something that I really didn't want to do because I wanted to have my own DNA passed down through my generation. That was important for me. Not that my wife wanted adoption and I didn't. That wasn't the case, but I'm just saying I know from being in that same situation, I wanted to have my own kids in some form or fashion. So there's something to that, and it's a very difficult thing to navigate with somebody, and it's very hard to steer them in any one direction or the other. Sometimes people do eventually get there if they exhaust all the options. I didn't get there. It wasn't something either one of us wanted to do. So I would say that, listen, a lot of couples, especially people of means, are having surrogacy pregnancies now. You've got Candy from Escape and the Housewives of Atlanta, who, her and her husband just had a second child, and it was via surrogacy. Kim and Kanye, surrogacy, right? So there's a lot of these pregnancies and babies that are birthed out of surrogacy. And depending on what are the fertility issues, you consider those options. And I know from experience, what they do is you do advanced genetic testing. So my wife and I did that as well, where we do advanced genetic testing of our DNA, and that determines, are there any markers for genetic deficiencies, to determine if and when you have children, what are the likelihood of those children, having any particular disabilities, right? So for us, we did it. We didn't have that issue, but I could understand because Tami is significantly older than my wife was, and also significantly older in terms of, having successful pregnancies at 51. That's something that's of concern. And for her now to have eggs, you want those eggs to be healthy. You don't want to go down a whole journey of surrogacy and then have an outcome of a baby that is born with a mental disability or born stillbirth. I've had several friends that have had that experience where they've had a stillbirth. That is very traumatic, depending on how long in the pregnancy it is, where the woman sometimes has to deliver the baby. That is not an ideal situation. Nobody wants to be in that. So if medical advancements put you in a position to be able to do different things, go for it. I know Tami is a lightning rod, so I know probably on the reel she was just more provocative with it. But, with her taking the time to explain what works for them, it just sounds like they want to take a break. They want to, because it's a lot. It takes a lot of toll on the woman's body. It's very stressful for the couple, all the different steps. So for her, I think she was just saying, let's take a break from this because it's taxing. We need to figure out this time. But before we get to the next stage, this is what I want to do. This is what I think we want to do.
To me, man, this is the reason why I feel so strongly about keeping family business inside the family. Anything that happens within these 4 walls does not go outside these 4 walls. This is something that is extremely personal that you just let the world into. So you're going to feel like you have to come back and answer question after question after question. So I'm curious as to why Tami would even do this, to be honest with you. Because Tami is a lightning rod. Tami, she speaks her mind. She says how she says it. And she doesn't pull in many punches, but this is a very sensitive topic for her. I'm understanding that as well. but now that it's out, she's going to have to continue to pretty much explain things the best way she can as far as what they've already decided to do in their household. If she did give him a hall pass, it's nobody's business but theirs. If they don't want to be, if they don't want to do adoption, it's no one else's business but theirs. So, just opening up that one statement that she made about what's going on in her family is going to have everyone questioning, people that don't need to, even be talking about them. Be honest with you, So now this is a conversation now. So when it comes to adoption, I agree with what Sean said 100%. It's more about for that man, especially if he's not the problem, as far as being able to have the baby. He wants that baby he wants to build that legacy. He wants it like Sean said, his DNA to run through that baby's veins. So it's important for him in whatever capacity it is for him to have that done. I'm pretty sure that conversation came up because that's the lengths that they're going to get this baby. I'm sure that's a conversation that had to happen. So if it was shot down, it was shot down. My whole thing is out right now, but I think it was a mistake, and I think she understands it was a mistake to let this type of information out about their personal lives. That's pretty much all I had to say about them.
Yeah, it's a deep conversation, honestly, because I've got friends as well who've been expecting for 10 plus years, and it's not an easy journey at all. And I've even got a friend currently who's waited for 10 years. She tried surrogates, tried IVF recently. They didn't get through, and it was really hard for them, because injecting yourself every day for the hormones and all those things, it's just such an emotional roller coaster of a journey. And this is what I was saying the other time, that I really feel for women, when they talk about wanting someone who can be a provider in that sense, because it's a lot for a woman, and it takes a lot on the body. I think the guys have made mention of most of the other parts of the conversation. The only thing I kind of wasn't down for, but again, I just give a preface, is the fact that The Real is a very, very sensational show. The ladies make a lot of comments sometimes that they don't really mean in real life. Even though they call it The Real, I think sometimes they make sensational comments. So the whole thing about, you should not be emotionally attached and all those kind of things, I think to me it's kind of a thing where she means it, but she doesn't mean it, because I think she mean it in the sense that, okay, she doesn't want to lose a man, obviously, but then, to say that, sort of, if you look at it literally, it might come off like she's in control of the whole situation, and she's ordering him around and telling him how things will go, which, interpret it whichever way. Again, I just want to give her the leeway to say The Real is a sensational show, and maybe she's just saying that to be sensational and all those kind of things. And if you look at the comment section on the video on The Real, a lot of people talk about, this is selfishness, this is not fair, this is not the way you should set up another woman to be, setting up another woman to be a single mom. That's not right. That's not the way things should be. And you might want to also look at it, if this brother was, Warren Buffett, would she be commanding the whole situation like this, or be able to say the kind of things she's saying? I don't think so. I don't think she's gonna be, I mean, I'm not in their pocket, so I don't know who makes more or whatever, but I think that also could kind of play into the whole situation, and that's what I'm saying. I just give her leeway of, let's say, okay, maybe she's just being sensational, but the guys already mentioned it, putting out this kind of business out like that, it's not something I'm down for at all.
Yeah, you guys made some great points. I want to pick up on one of the points about what David just said a minute ago, because I think that's where I'm more leaning towards, right? That the release of this information to me seems very purposeful. Like, there was no need for it. Like, this is unprovoked information, right? And unless Tami is I like to say loose with lips, which I don't remember her being as such. Like, it's from what I remember seeing her. I don't really remember that being her kind of MO, right? But I don't know her as deeply as other characters I've seen on TV. So it may be that she is a bit more loose with lips, right? If she is, then this is her MO, then this is naturally what she's thinking, this is what it is. If it's not, then this is a calculated move to get ahead of something that's going to happen, right? Because if when she explained it, I totally got, I do kind of get what she was saying, right? She can't have these. I'm not having an issue with that at all. She can't have kids because the children will be, be special needs. I totally get that, but that also means now surrogacy, in a sense, actually is also ruled out, because now it's, in a sense, when we talk about surrogacy, it's your eggs, someone else's body. But in this case, there's another type of surrogacy as well. Okay, where the person actually generally has your sperm, that man's sperm, and then the woman's sperm. Okay, fantastic. So that's another part of surrogacy, right? Can I say this point then? This is very much Abraham and Sarah vibes, right? I'm not against. I understand one part of surrogacy where you give your eggs to someone else and they grow the eggs, sperm. I get that body can't contain certain things. The moment you go into the field of his eggs, her eggs, his sperm, and it's not your eggs anymore, you've created a life outside of your domain from somebody else's DNA, right? And now you have to think it's not about me and it's not about you. This is what I brought up the other point about women having children without the father figure and men leaving their children. It becomes selfish, because actually it becomes about your desire to want to have kids, but you've forgotten what is the turmoil for that kid now coming out, knowing that that child's gonna have to raise, in a sense, knowing first and foremost, you are not their biological father or mother, or whichever one is going to be it's going to be the mother in this case, right? You're not going to be the biological. She's not going to be the biological mother, right? Now, so what? Do we add the other woman in? Now, I know we can work it around and people can be communicative and everything, but I'm saying this is Abraham and Sarah all over again, and we saw how that ended. It doesn't end pretty. And the reason why it doesn't end pretty is because eventually people's feelings come into play, right? You can pay that woman £1 million, but when she suddenly gets the feeling of, oh my God, it's my child, because bear in mind, she's carrying that child for 9 months and it's her DNA. What happens when that child looks like her? And you see that child and it looks like you, right? What happens when you realize that child has now, and listen, people can get evil real quick. That child's now got a better life than what you have. But listen, so many things can go wrong. And I'm not saying that, again, I don't understand the plight. That's what I'm saying to you about the difference here is that she actually can't use her eggs because the child has a higher chance of being special needs. Well, if that's also the case, that this child is going to be special needs, and you can foresee that you don't want to put that child in that predicament, why don't we ever think about the mental predicament that child's going to be in? There are enough kids out here in this world already on Earth who we can see the conflict of having to deal with a biological parent not being there by choice, not because they're passed away or anything like that, but by choice. That puts that child in a very difficult predicament. So I'm not saying that the surrogacy part, I couldn't see it happening, right? I can see it because obviously it's your egg in another woman's body. That means it's your DNA. She's just an incubator. But the moment it goes past that now, and it's her DNA and the man's sperm, we've got Abraham and Sarah, right? And how you feel now is just how this is exactly what Sarah just said to Abraham. Abraham, go on, have Hagar, have our servant, and go into her. As soon as that child came, Hagar started getting some strength, right? Started talking reckless, started coming out of position, right? Because she was a servant, started coming out of position, started feeling herself, started throwing little shady vibes, right? Little indirects. And it only takes one little indirect before the whole thing gets wrecked, right? And now Sarah's like, Abraham, this is your fault. This is your fault because you've allowed this woman into our home. It will always be the man's fault in the end. It will always be the man's fault in the end. So, in this position, for me, I'm looking at going, what's the after effects of this decision that we're about to make? for the child, and then what could be the repercussions for your actual relationship. You may be doing this to save it, but you might have just wrecked it totally. Right? I know he wants a legacy, but he knew that before he got with you. Right? He's gonna have to take some accountability here too. He knew that before he got with you. Right? That you're older, and this is potential chance that it's gonna be more difficult. Yeah, and you got a time period of time to get it in. Right? And also we realize now that that medically it's much more difficult for you, so you're in a difficult predicament in a situation. But I go with individual's point here. Then adoption has to be considered, because what you're about to consider is, I want to make it strong so people really deep what I'm saying here. Like, it's not just you having a kid, it's you having a child who the mother will not be the actual mother, who you're asking now to also give up that child so that you will now become the mother. Forcefully, you've chosen that path for the child. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? And again, our generation, we do so many different things. People have sex unprotected, have a child. I didn't mean to have a child. Yes, I know those things, right? And this is why I'm saying that as men and as women, we got to take accountability for the actions we're taking. It's not just having a kid, right? But anyway, the guy is 17, as David said here, the guy is 17 years younger. So maybe he feels that this could be a possible route. I'm scared that he gonna end up leaving anyway. But that's my thoughts. Who wants to chime back in and say something? Maybe got a different viewpoint, because it's good. My point is not the only point. There are different viewpoints to this situation. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so let me do this. Let's get into the mind of the gentleman here. I don't even know his name, but let's get into the mind of the husband. All right, so
Reggie.
Respect, respect. All right, so in Reggie's mind, he wants to have this baby. He doesn't want to do an adoption. He wants to have a baby, his legacy and bloodstream and all that good stuff. But put yourself in the shoes of Tami. If you are a devoted wife who wants to give her husband everything he desires, and you cannot do that, you feel it's something that happens to you. I mean, we don't discuss that enough, because it's a rare find to find a woman who's willing to let this happen because of something she can't give her husband. He's well within his right to ask these things, but she feels like she cannot give him these things. So now she feels bad. She feels like, she's not being 100% the wife that he wants. You make a good point. He knew this before ahead of time that she was up in age, right? So he knew this. I'm sure they had a plan put together, but those plans don't always come through the way you want them to. Hey, I'm up in age, but we'll still try. We'll try IVF. We'll try this. We'll try that. Let's get married. Okay. Well, let's do it the right way. Let's get married first, and then we'll try to have a child. But now they have reached all these complications, So I'm just speaking to the other side of the coin, because you make a very good point, Coach, but I want to speak about the full coin, both sides. So that's why I say that.
Yeah, and earlier when I was sharing, I definitely learned a whole lot more about fertility, the female productive system, just through my own experiences in my marriage. So I had a lot of preconceived notions, even when we started going down the IVF path and considering what that meant, and we're intervening with God's process. But you look at advancements in medicine, you look at technology when people get ill and sick, and the things that we do today that we didn't do in the past, whether it's, gene therapy and all of these different technologies that are out here, where we are technically duplicating cells and genes in order to allow people to heal. Whether it's through cancer or other things that happen to folks. This is just yet another medical, an aspect of medical technology for me. And again, I had to learn it because I lived it. So now hearing her story, I have empathy for anybody who goes through that, because there is a lot of shame for women when they aren't able to produce children. There are a lot of women who do die during childbirth, especially women of color. So it is a very touchy topic, and it's one that I had to learn to just get more information on, So for me, I'm like, whatever you need to do, if that's what you both have decided to do, and these are the means you're going to do it, as long as you follow the letter of the law, you make sure it's just like with adoption, you have to sign a contract. There's all different types of adoption. Some are open, some are closed. So the same with surrogacy. And the laws are changing, constantly. So I would say, like, listen, I think most children are in pain when they're not loved. Most children are traumatized when one or the other parent is not there in their lives. They have two people. There's nothing greater story to tell a child that your parents wanted you so much that they went through great lengths for you to be here. And we love you just that much. The chances of, you don't see that when people go to those great lengths and spend that much money to bring a child into that child is love. Anybody that has an IVF baby, or they call them rainbow babies, that come after people have miscarriages, that child has so much love. And I've seen it from other friends and family members of mine, that it's even greater than a child that was just born naturally or wasn't a planned pregnancy, because you devote so much of yourself. And listen, I can totally sit in that space, because I devoted so much energy, so much time, money, in order to try to have it happen, and it didn't work out for us. So I know what it feels like to sit in their shoes, and I have nothing but empathy for them. I hope that they get a child any way they want to. So that's kind of the perspective that I take. I don't have an opinion on how they're doing it, as long as, like, if they start going out and say, okay, just sleep with the woman, no, I don't agree with that. I think that's very risky. That's not energy you want to bring into your marriage. But if it's going through legal realms, surrogacy, to have a child, I'm in full support of that. That's my thought.
Yeah, it's definitely a very difficult thing, because, like I said, I have a lot of friends who, have gone through this, spent a lot of money, and some of them still believe in God for a miracle. So I can definitely resonate with what Sean is saying. It's not an easy journey to go through. However, the point that Kojo making is also very important, because, I'm just looking at the comments on the video, and, someone said, so that baby will be born into a broken home where the mom and dad aren't together, right? We need more of that. Is that right? And then someone else is like, Tami, you better hope he doesn't catch feelings and fall in love and decide she's amazing and he wants to have a family with her. So these are the two sides of the story, because you think about the child coming to a home, coming to a life where this is the way situation is. That's something we should be concerned about, because as much as we want to be concerned about our own happiness, our own joy, the whole joy of having a baby and all these things, we also have to consider the child we're bringing into this world that's going to be faced with all these things. That's very important. And if you're also going to do this, you talk about the Sarai and Agar. It's also a kind of similar situation. What if he then likes that woman? What if he then wants to be with that woman, and then just your relationship is gone into two? So, I think it always sounds very unfair and very, some people have opinions. But this is why I always say that, it's important that people do consider and count their costs, like the Bible says, before they get involved in things. It's beautiful to see that the husband decided to say no, he's not going to go ahead with the plan that she's making, which is beautiful, admirable. He really loves her and all these things. But these are just the realities of when you have this dynamic of a relationship whereby this is how things are, and I think it's just her trying to be selfless. But I think her trying to be selfless is also not thinking of the big picture of what exactly the details are. So again, I think individual suggestion is probably the best line of direction to go.
Yeah, and by the way, I actually don't disagree with IVF or anything like that. I disagree with that. I wanted to let me make it again, the clear distinction between any of those kind of procedures, even surrogacy. There are, that's why I'm glad you corrected me, Sean. There are two types in that sense. Well, there's probably even a few more, but in this particular situation we're talking about, I'm not against whether it's artificial or whether it's normal insemination, whatever we're talking about. My point here was, if the eggs are not hers, there's someone else's, with someone else's DNA. Now, this may be happening already, and I don't even know about it, because it's the first time I'm really kind of delving into this world, right? And this may be happening quite a lot. My hat on my head that says, what is the after effects of some of these particular behaviors, is I'm looking at thinking, what happens to that child? Because people who don't even have their parents around, but maybe have a stepfather, we heard it today with Tyrone, there's no one that can replace your original biological father or mother. So if someone takes that away from you from the very jump, purposefully, what damage does that do to the person's mindset? Now, the person may not go crazy per se, but there may be some hurt feelings there as you're growing up, realizing that actually your mother is not your mother, although your mother loves you and cares for you and you appreciate that. In the back of your mind, you're always going to be thinking, who's my real mother? Because how human beings are wired, and this is why children are a gift from God. We're wired in a certain way, which is why I don't disagree with IVF or anything like that, because I understand those are medical advancements in the field to help us have those children. I'm not against it at all. Not against it at all. Even the surrogacy where you plant your egg in someone else's body, I'm not against it at all. The person is just carrying the child. But when someone has to now go outside of the remit of your relationship to bond with somebody else, artificially or not, that child is now created with somebody else's DNA. And that makes for a sticky situation, right? I don't want to see the earth populate with children like that. I'm sorry, I don't. Because psychologically, there's going to be damage that's going to be done, right? It's going to be some type of damage that's going to be done. So for me, I am very much empathetic towards her situation and the husband's situation. By the way, in the end, he chose not to do this. Thank God. He took Abraham's advice and learned from his forefather. But, and that's not me crushing them or saying I'm better than them, or not saying that people don't do this. I'm more in the case of just saying, let's be very careful. Like we said, there are things, the Bible says we can do all things, but not everything's beneficial for us. Not everything's edifiable, right? Not everything that we do should be done. You know what I mean? I can eat feces if I wanted to, but should it be done? No, it shouldn't be done. There are effects that will happen to me after doing that, right? And because we don't see sometimes the mental effect straight away, we assume that we can get away with it. And that's what I'm saying as a point of consideration. When I look at the comment section on the video that she explained the situation, there are so many comments from women going, totally understand what you're saying, Tami. Totally understand what you're saying, Tami. Totally understand what you're saying, Tami. Yeah, why would you want to do that? And they not deepen the actual message. And this is why I brought up that point. Everybody just hears, oh, she's was willing to do what she can do for her husband. And I'm down with that. Like, I want to see wives doing as much as they can for their husbands, of course. But that's why I mentioned Abraham and Sarah again. Is exactly that same situation. When someone is going to be having to birth a child outside of your relationship, how will that affect you? Because that man will eternally have a bond with that surrogate woman. Always. Whether he wants it or not, biologically, he will always have a bond with that woman. So, it's something to consider. But like I said, I'm also going to be open because I don't know everything about the subject. And as Sean, you've explained as well, it is a touchy subject. You know what I'm saying? So I want to be open as well and say, hey, that's my position now, but it might not be my position later on. Once I get more information through and more light to the situation, as you shared, Sean, as well, quite educationally, I might have to be ready to shift, because this could be an ignorant stance point from where I'm standing, not having all the facts and figures and understanding the whole picture of the scenario.
I'll add too, and again, because I've kind of like immersed myself in different aspects of this. Yeah. So there are people just like you, and this is a little different in this instance, but just like, like when somebody has a car accident and they donate their heart. So there are women who have eggs, and especially at younger ages, and they donate those eggs to science. So in the surrogacy environment, the egg might not even come from the same woman that is going to be the surrogate. So it could come, so you get to choose, just like how women go to the sperm bank and choose sperm donors to have their kids with, that don't want to have, kids with a man, or don't necessarily have a man to have kids with. And again, I'm not making that right or wrong or whatever, but this is just the other side of that, where there's donor egg. You can pick the eggs, you can pick who the person is. And I think when I was hearing her speak, that's what she was saying. Like, now that she's at a point to have to, now her egg reserves aren't good enough to be implanted into someone else because they have some deformalities in them. She's now considering donor eggs. So that's a lengthy process, and you need a lot of time to sit and figure all of that stuff out. Then you got to find the host or the surrogate who's going to be the one that's going to do that. And there's all different types of means, all different types of people. You go through a vetting process. It's all stuff I've researched. We didn't get there in doing any of that because we decided that's not what we were going to do. But I had to educate myself on what that looked like. What would that be? And yeah, there are definitely some risks that go along with it. But if you align and you pick a donor egg, it's almost like you don't even, yes, should you tell your child at some point, but it's not like they're going to walk around because they don't look like you, right? It's not necessarily a conversation that you have to embrace so early on and figure out how you're going to navigate that. You adopt a child, for all intents and purposes, there's no connection, mother or father, and you at some point, if you don't have the conversation, the child's going to find out, and they're going to be at, they're going to be at a disadvantage. And I think as long as for me, my perspective is, as long as that's what Tami and Reggie have gotten on the same page about, as long as they both are good with this, but if one is not, yeah, you shouldn't go in either direction. Like, if Reggie is like, yeah, no, I hear that you want to do this for me, but I don't want it enough, or I don't need us to go down that path, then no need for her to push the agenda just to give him a child, right? But if they're both on the same page, I think, listen, go for it. If that's what you feel like you need to do, and as long as you do it with intention, taking into consideration a lot of the other things that you said, right? Making sure that child is cared for, that there are provisions in place, that this prospective egg donor is not in a position to come back and stake claim on that child or cause any havoc within your household once you've made that decision. And again, I definitely do not agree with just going out and finding a woman and saying, okay, let's just have a baby with her. No, I think that is opening up Pandora's box, and you're definitely setting off a chain of events which can come back to bite you later on. So that part I don't co-sign off of. But the other things, I think if it works for them, it works for them. They just need to be very intentional and very thoughtful along that process.
Totally hear that, Sean. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. All right, let's move on to the final part of our conversation. So I said I heard a conversation because it's actually very similar to what we just spoke about, actually, where lady was saying she wanted to, it doesn't matter if she has a man or not, she wants to have a kid, basically, right? So she wants to be able to have a second child, and she doesn't care who it's with. I'm not gonna lie to you, when she said it at the time, I looked at her and I said, she's a fun, no, jokes. But I thought about it for a second. And then, but in realness, all jokes aside, she was explaining, saying, obviously, look, she just wants to have a second kid because the first one's gonna be alone, and she wants to have a second kid. Obviously, relationship doesn't seem like it's right now, but she wants to be able to have that child in a sense. And since we're already talking about surrogacy and IVF and all that kind of stuff already here, We've got a woman saying she wants to be able to have a child now. Can we even stop her now? I mean, not physically. Can we even have a leg to stand on then to say she should be denied this right?
Yes. Yeah, we should. Because well, mainly speaking on the behalf of the child, right? I think when it comes to these types of situations, there's a reason why it's advised for a child to have a two-parent household. It doesn't even matter like what type of environment or like where the parents are coming from. Can the parents be able to provide and work together for the health and safety of the child? Right. That is the main primary concern. Of course, a rebuttal would be okay, but I have my family members to help me. I have a grandmother or something like that to be able to help me. Those people are ultimately, they can't take on the brunt of that responsibility. If you are going to choose to have a child, um, you have to bear most of the brunt of that responsibility. If you're an adult, and you want to be able to have this child and you already have one, but you want another, my concern would be, okay, what type of environment are you trying to raise this child in? Right? Like, because to me, as I understand it, I believe that a child needs to be able to have a masculine and a feminine presence, because though that is the first experience a child has to be able to understand the dynamics between men and women in general, right? They understand in certain aspects, okay, this is what a woman has, this is what a man has, this is what they both bring to the table, this is how they interact with one another, or at least those types of different energies, to where you have a dominant and a more submissive energy, to be able to understand, okay, this is how things work between them, and how can I be able to do that? If there's only one person, it's then that much harder. Speaking to involuntary single mothers, you'll begin to understand, okay, a lot of from what I hear from them is that they need help, or they at least want to be able to have another presence or another role model for their children, whether it's a woman, whether it's a girl or a boy. They still want to be able to have that presence there, so that they can understand, okay, this is how you should be treated by the opposite sex, or this is how you should be treated by a future partner or someone else that is not me, because I can't do it all on my own. So to then have somebody who wants to voluntarily be a single mother, to me, possibly sounds dangerous, because it's more than just about the finances. It's more than just about wanting to nurture. There's another presence that needs to be there for that child to be able to experience in depth, not just a here and there. It actually needs to be something, someone who can actually be there consistently. If you speak to children who only had a mother in the household, they also do want to be able to, they wonder what it would be like to be able to have that type of in-depth relationship with a masculine figure in the household. There's a reason why these things are in place. So I don't understand why someone would want to only have their presence there, unless it's just focused on what they want. If that is the case, honestly, get a dog, get a pet, get something that would rely on you rather than a actual human being, right? Because a human being requires more than just one responsible person. You actually need someone, and you actually need more than one person to be able to sustain that life, to be able to pour into that human being. Like, ultimately, that's what this is about. It's not just about what you want. It's about what's actually necessary for this person that you're bringing into the world. You are responsible to bring somebody who's actually a productive member of society. You can't just have a whole person just because you want that, just because that's what you think you can do. Sure, you have one child already, but I think that if you want to have multiple children, like, there may be a deficiency there that you alone cannot bring in. Okay, you want to have, I've actually heard of people, of women wanting to bring in like their best friend, who would come in and like just sub in as a masculine figure. To me, that is not, I wouldn't suggest that, because again, that's not consistent, right? You're having someone else who doesn't have the responsibility of actually being in this child's life consistently, to be able to pour into them, and you're then asking them to then sub in or to be a temporary figure to just pop in here and there so they see what it's like, right? Like, to me, how does that actually work long term in terms of the long span of this child's life? How could it actually be able to be productive and secure for that child? There needs to be more than just someone who's here and there, right? Or I even think that's selfish to ask someone else to then ask them to bear the brunt of that responsibility when they have no, like, responsibility in that sense. Unless you're choosing to like partner with them so that you can get their sperm, and then like you can raise a child on your own and stuff like that, and say, okay, yeah, this is your dad. He's just here. Like, to me, it's very unstable in every sense of the possible solution that is being presented, right? Like, it does not make sense. And I'm not even sure if the idea that the person has is actually going to match up with reality, right? So then the person who wants that may not even be getting exactly all that they wanted, because there's so much more that comes with it. Like, of course, okay, sure, you might have done a pretty good job with the first child, but then a second child may be completely different. It may not be what you bargained for either. Not only in terms of being able to provide, but then also they may have different needs. They may have different desires. They may have things that were like, they're just a totally different type of child that you may not have been ready for. Someone that you may actually need help with, but because you sought this out without additional help from another masculine figure or someone who's actually able to be consistent with you in that journey, I'm not sure if that's still the wisest scenario that you would want, especially again, if you speak to involuntary single mothers. Like, they will tell you that's not a good idea. So then if you have women who are single mothers and don't want to be, why would you then want to voluntarily walk into that? Or like take a best friend and the both of you just raise kids together? To me, it sounds like a fantasy. And it sounds very selfish because it's based on what you want rather than what's necessary for raising that child. My rant is done.
Yeah, this right here is a perfect example of what Kojo was saying earlier about holding each other accountable. Because it's a woman's body, it's very, for us, we can give our 2 cents on it, but as far as like holding their feet to the fire, we need other women to speak up about this. Because what ends up happening is that women are thinking just financially. You have a lot of different mindsets when it comes to things like this. So you have the ones who are thinking, oh, it's just financially. I make enough money. I can take care of this kid. It's okay. Those who are not thinking about, waking up in the middle of the night, feeding, burping, everything. It's just the baby stages, then preparing them for life. They don't think about that. So, and then you have the women who think of this mindset, and this is the one that's a killer mindset. I was raised by a single mother. I turned out okay. So you have to think about that dynamic too, because they see that they have their own life instance that they're going off of. So they think that my mom did it with me. I have my mom's genes. I got this. I can do this. It's not a problem. But that's something that they're not really thinking about, not thinking the whole thing through. Just how much more they would have had if they did have that second parent in the picture. Not to say you can't be successful, but you're limiting success in any kind of way when you take that second parent out of the gate. Now, there are some situations where it's better to have just one parent. Some of these dads, some of these moms are not good. They can need to be thrown away, to be honest with you. But the ones that are, if you have something to add to that kid's life, something of value to give to that kid, it's worth it to have that other parent in the picture. But that fight for it is not really there. So just want to say my 2 cents.
Who's next? Go.
Sean, you want to go? All right, I'll go. It looks like Sean is eating. um, so I think, well, Corey already said the main thing. But if you listen to, there's a channel on YouTube called the Lapif channel, and they talk about this issue as well. You know, and like Sean commented in the comment section, or in the private chat, this is something that's happening on a daily basis. This is the advent of science. Science has made all this kind of stuff possible, and women are, taking advantage of it. And like Corey was saying, a lot of women are studying, working high-paying jobs, six figures, all these things. So they feel like I have the money to take care of the child. Why will I need a man who cannot match up to my financial level? We're not financially yoked, as they call it. And so if I can do it by myself, why do I need to have a man? I can just do it by myself. Or there are those who even tell you like, oh, well, I have my uncle and my whatever. They will be the male figure and support and all these things. And it doesn't take away the place of the father, doesn't take away the place of what the father brings to the table, and this is why we keep saying, because we've had this kind of conversation on some other channels before, and oftentimes personally I've seen women commenting in the comment section, oh, life is not all about having a man and having a kid and all this thing. I'm like, power to you, sis. If that's what you want, keep up at it. If you're sure that you don't want to ever have kids in this world, you want to die alone and be happy, good for you. But don't be jumping on people's channels, writing these things, and then at night you're holding the sheet, feeling cold, looking for a man, or listening to Corey's channel. If you really, really want to get married and have kids, you better be seriously getting out there dating, trying to meet people, trying to connect, so that you don't end up in this situation. And it kind of piggybacks off of the Tammy's case. There are women who are not doing their fertility health. I talk about this because my wife is in this field, and a lot of cases where women submit their eggs and they can't even find two that are alive and ready to fertilize babies. So when you say all these things, it's easy to jump off and say, yeah, you're chauvinistic. What? This is coming from a place of concern and love. Go and check, see how you're doing, see where you are. Yeah, and I understand the mindset. The mindset is I don't want to be under pressure and being afraid, and I don't want to be so concerned about it, looking at my biological clock. But you're better off knowing than not knowing, and then getting to that point in life where you're ready to have a kid and you don't have eggs anymore. So not actually dealing with these issues is how you end up coming to this position where now you've made all this money, but you don't have the husband, you don't have the man, and now you're like, oh, there's this option out there and I can afford it and I can take care of the kid, so let me go and do that. And that's how we run into all these kind of issues, because you have kids out here who, some of us, you had your dad at home and he wasn't so involved, and you turned out as okay as you can and you're trying to make the best of it. Now somebody's even going to make it worse by not even having a man at all, and you're like, how does that make any sense? It's just crazy. So, but this is the whole modern woman's idea and approach to life, because at the end of the day, again, I say, women always say, oh, it's not all about money, but the first part they want you to lead is financially. So let's not kid each other. And we get to this point where now we want to have kids without a father, and like Corey said, if you listen to, there's a show, you listen to the previous show, that's where they talk about this. And there was a woman who was actually checking the other women and telling them, no, that's not right. You can't just do that. And that's what we always talk about, like what Sean talks about on our lives. Sometimes we're like, women just need to call each other out. There's nothing wrong with calling each other out and being accountable to say, oh, okay, maybe this is wrong. Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe I'm seeing it from a different perspective. Maybe I should listen, and that's always a problem, because women hardly want to call women out. Even on our lives, sometimes you can see women who hold a different view, but they won't say anything. They'll just keep quiet because they don't want to, I don't know, offend the other ladies. And when you ask them, maybe they write it in the comment section, but they're not going to speak up and say, no, I actually don't agree with you, so and so. And men always do it more. We call each other out and we're like, okay, I see you, bro. I see you. I get it. You know, so it's just a problem. And I think our mothers need to do that more as well. You know, our mothers need to do that because many of these women have been told by their parents, yeah, go to school and whatever. You know, a lot of women talk about the fact that, you know, when they were younger, their parents are telling them to study, work hard, make money. You don't need a man. I mean, my wife was telling me like that's all her dad was telling her for a long time. And then he got to a particular age, and the dad was like, yeah, you have to get married. You're getting older. And it's like, wait, what are we doing? You're telling me to not be interested in boys or whatever. And now I got to this age, and now you're asking me about a husband. How did I get the husband if I didn't learn how to be a wife? So, you know, it's the whole modernist woman idea whereby, you know, women and men, you know, just need to talk to each other. We need to be able to listen to each other so we can all do better.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. Um, I'll give an unpopular alternative, right? What about women who want to get pregnant and just find a guy to get pregnant by, and the man doesn't want to have the kid, and then they still go forward and have the kids? So, in my opinion, I'll take what we're talking about now versus a woman trapping a guy into having a baby, because at least she's going about it. She's taking full responsibility. It's not ideal. I think it's always ideal to have a 2-parent household. You know, I think those are the best. You know, that's the best environment. You know, when children are born to a mother and a father. But we know the reality, right? The reality today, that's not happening in a lot of cases. There's a lot of parents and people having kids that aren't together, and you know, pregnancies that are happening without thought. So this is just an alternative, and we've seen a lot of women do it. Heck, we even have men out here doing that now. Tyler Perry, I don't know if it happened through sperm donation or however he got his kids, or egg donation, however he got them, or adoption. Hill Harper, you know, we got enough single dudes out here that, you know, want kids and they're having them. So it's one of those things. I don't know. I don't know. Is it ideal? No, I'll say that much. But I'll take that over somebody getting a child by ill-gotten gains and going out here and tricking somebody into having a child, because that does happen, and that is not, you know, we've seen it, and that never ends well. So as we evolve, I guess part of that evolution is being open to different means of children being born. I think we get to choose what works for us. We get to choose what, you know, if we have a family member or friend that's in our circle and we feel like they're, you know, that could be something like, you know, hey, did you think about this or whatever? But at the end of the day, similar to the other aspect is of what Corey says, it's very hard. You think we have problems getting men and women to agree about what we want in relationships? Try to tell a woman what she's going to do with her body when it comes to having a baby. Good luck. I don't even want to tackle that. That's not a hill I'm willing to die on. So I can have an opinion. My opinion is I don't think it's ideal. I think you should, you know, give children an opportunity and the best footing in life. But am I going to be debating that with a woman? Probably not. I'd rather spin my wheels on something that's going somewhere. That one, I'll be spinning in circles trying to tell her, because it's happening so often. Women are free, single professional women. If I could tell you the conversations I've had with women who are single, and at a certain age in their 30s, companies now are offering incentives for women to store their eggs and making it part of medical plans. So it is a very real thing. And a lot of women are choosing that option. They're either choosing to do it to store for future use if they have, you know, find a suitable husband, partner to give birth to the child together with them, but store their eggs while their eggs are still at in a good place and fertile. Or down the line, if they want to have kids enough, they are doing what we're talking about right now. So it is super common. More common than you probably know.
my question, Sean, is why does it have to be an either or? Like, why does it have to be, oh, this is better than that? You know what I mean? Like, why can't they both be equally as bad in terms of the comparison, right? Like, why do we have to say, okay, at least it's not that? I mean, it's still bad. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it reminds me of the previous election in America where we had Joe Biden or Trump. Neither option was great. And we could say, like, okay, at least Biden is not Trump. Yet here we are, and things aren't exactly the best with Biden either, right? So then, even in the case of a comparison, it's still a bad matchup, right? So like, it's still not necessarily great. So I'm not sure. I have to offer pushback on that one because I'm not sure if we should necessarily view it in a better light just because it's not as bad as something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just think there's the reality realm, right? And we talked about the idea of something versus the reality of something. And I offered that as another thing that takes place when a woman wants to have a child, but is not necessarily in a relationship where she can have it. And she goes about having a child with a man. And that's under the natural state that, we're okay with in that sense. And that man still winds up being on the losing end because it's not a child that he wants. So yeah, I would say I would rather, if she's going to go about having a child herself and feels that strongly about it, I would prefer that over this. And if we reference your comparison with Trump to Biden, I still wouldn't have chosen the way that I voted because I still wouldn't want Trump in the office. So granted, things aren't the greatest as they could be with Biden. Sometimes in life, you make the lesser of two evils. And I'm good with the choice that I made with that because I would not want the previous to be here still.
Fair enough. As for the other point that you made in terms of arguing about a woman's body, fair. That's a can of worms. That's like really tough. However, in this conversation, I think it's important to still think about, okay, this might be still another can of worms, but my mind also goes to the body of the baby, like the care of the baby, the life of the baby, right? And this seems like a very like abortion-esque kind of conversation that I'm not sure about. But at the same time, if we're talking about what a woman does with her body, I'm not going to argue with anybody. Do whatever you want. But to me, when you now bring in the conversation of another life and raising that life, now I have a whole bunch of questions about how you're going to be able to protect and raise and provide for that life, because it's not just about you anymore, which is my whole point in the first place. If you're only thinking about what you can do or what you want to do with this child and how you want to nurture it, to me, it reminds me of like little girls, like little baby infant girls who want to have a doll and want to play around with that doll for playtime. This is much more serious than that, right? Like this is actually a human being that you'll have to raise, and the responsibility of what happens to them or how they interact with the society now depends on you. That is a burden that shouldn't just be that shouldn't necessarily be light, right? Or it shouldn't necessarily be light. And maybe people aren't viewing it lighthearted. That's an assumption. Let me take that back, right? But at the same time, I still wonder how much work goes into trying to be able to raise this child in a sustainable and a stable household that that doesn't depend on your desires, right? That's where my mind goes with it. What about the child rather than just about the woman?
Yeah, I'm with you, individual as well, and I definitely hear the push. Sean's also kind of angle as well. I think for me, just again, I'd be thinking about the kid again once more. I'll be like, you know what? I am not free to not think about the child that's now being brought into this world because you have a desire. And I think this kind of question, it's not just women as well. It's like I said, it's men leaving their children, stuff like that. This really just shows again the evil hearts of man. I'm going to say evil, and I'll tell you why. Because we're intentionally putting ourselves in a deficit, right? And putting that child in a deficit who had nothing to do with you, right? Now in that deficit, consciously, right? And a lot of times, human beings, we have desires. All of us have evil desires. I call it evil desires to make it very harsh, right? Because I don't want to make it palatable, because then it makes it really easy to get past this conversation and other conversations like this. And I'm including this, right? There are going to be sins that I've done, okay, that I can't take back, right? And the consequences are lasting, right? But I totally take both your points, David and Sean. For instance, I take the angle of what. So when I had that conversation with one of the girls who was talking about this, the part that scared me was, hold on a minute, this girl ain't going to the clinic to go and get the child. So what if her mindset is, I don't care who I come across, but one of you freely can bust inside and I got you? What if the child being accured now is now through manipulation means, right? Because remember, that desire that you have, all right, it's problematic already. So if you're already there, you may be willing to go down the particular lane to get that child, right? Now, we can call it trapping, but what it did, it sobered me up. It sobered me the heck up, because I realized, hold on a minute, there are girls out here who want your sperm, and you out here playing, thinking it's free. You're out here playing, thinking you're gonna get some freely. By the way, we're Christians, we shouldn't be doing that. But you're out here freely trying to get some, right? Getting freaky deaky, getting excited, you know what I'm saying? And you're shooting, and old girl's like, I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you did it. I got you, right? And at that point, there's actually accountability on my part, regardless of whether we agreed or not from the beginning. If I'm foolish enough as well to, if we listen, if I've got a relationship with you, it's different, right? I've born trust from you, right? With that, if you don't know the girl from Adam, and she tells you that she's got contraception and you bust inside it, bro, that's you listen, you can, if you want to believe that from the jump, I can't do that. Life is crazy, right? So a lot of time we're talking about trapping, man, them are not getting trapped. Man, them are trapping themselves because they're not thinking with their head. They're thinking with the other head, right? And they get excited and they put themselves in predicaments where they're now having to fight their way out. It's already too late. I'm trying to sober some men up, right? In this section. I want you to pay attention, man, them. There are girls out here who want your sperm. You're going to be crying after saying she trapped me. No, sir, nobody told you to shoot. You decided to shoot. You're going to get trapped. Then the other side of it I think of is, let's say it is an agreement. And I think, David, you mentioned this earlier on. I also have heard that. Women saying, I want to get my friend involved. I'm looking at it like, it won't be me. It won't be me. I'm trying to have my own family, and I'm not trying to be involved as a surrogate father. Okay? All right? I'm not trying to be a mentor to your kids. All right? You have to be responsible and choose a career. And it is coming from career women. This is the downside of being career driven. One of the downsides is that you spend a lot of time in your career and realize when you're going down that path that you spend a lot of time going down your career path. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying that I often hear that conversational chat from career-driven women. And this is why I'm saying to you that each individual person has to really take stock in terms of what they want in their life, right? And when you make that decision, there are consequences to the decision. It's unfortunate. The game's not fair. It is what it is. My final point is, it's not about us. It's about that child. So if you're going to do something that's going to make sure that child's in deficit, I've got to ask that real question. Is it really worth it? And also, since we're talking about men, these ladies are raising men, right? And I'm going to say it straight. It's going to sound mad. With all this feminine energy All right, raising men with all this feminine energy. Okay, all right, and listen, men need men, boys need men, good role models. I mean, so you as a woman, I'm just gonna put it straight. You cannot do our role. You can do the best possible job you can do, right? And I understand if you're in a situation where it's forced upon you, but if you're not being forced upon and you're doing it consciously, you are literally. How many times we hear on Red Pill? Do you know what I mean? The leaders of Red Pill that I see in the community on YouTube, especially, right? When I look at their lives, when they tell their story, most of them are telling the same story. Father went around. My mom raised me up. I hated my mom for a while because my mom was this and that. She made me into a weak human being. Now I'm this, da 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 da. Ladies, listen. These men are growing up hating you. Don't do it. Just don't purposely try to do it. The men are growing up getting vexed at you, and you're just trying to do the job, right? So it's just a little something, just to think about. You know what I'm saying? So again, this is a very nuanced conversation. There's more to it. That would need time. I don't know if anyone else wants to add last final thoughts in this section of conversation. All right, cool. Well, you know what, audience members, I know you probably have different array of thoughts. Maybe you disagree, but I was told you, Men Unfiltered, we're not here to cater to your ears, man. It's going to be offensive. You understand? So, listen, if you disagree, comment in the comment section. It's fine. Let's have a conversation. Let's get your thoughts out there, and let's chop it up a little bit. But we appreciate you. Make sure you have a Merry Christmas and that. Before I go, I'm gonna let Sean do a quick little benediction. I like when he does a little benediction. So I'm gonna do a little benediction. You can wrap it up how you want to. Do you know what I'm saying? After last time I said no dusties and the girls got on you. So
So listen, for all out there, this is just our, all of our unique perspectives. I also love tonight, and I hope you picked up on it. This is a wide collection of thoughts around the topic, right? So this isn't an echo chamber, but it is from the male perspective. Might not tickle your ears and your fancy just the way you want to hear it, but this is how we feel. This is what we think. This is our perspective. It doesn't stay the same. It can change. It can evolve. But please do listen to us. Listen to understand, not to respond. This isn't to fight anybody that makes any of the choices that we discussed. We're not attacking you. We're just giving our thoughts. So please continue to give us feedback. Continue to let us know what you would like to hear us talk about more. And we thank you, Coach, for allowing us to, watch us all on this platform. And please support us all. We all of us have a lot going on. Back to you, Coach.
yeah, Sean, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it as always. Good benediction as always. Good little roundup, So appreciate it. Guys, listen, make sure you have a good Christmas. We'll see you guys very, very soon. And you'll see more great content coming from us as well. And like Sean said, listen, if you've got any suggestions what you want us to talk about, please send them in, our email, lbb91talks@gmail.com. Send it in. We'll try and get the mandem to talk about it. Do you know what I'm saying? Hey, but if you're offended, listen, all I'm saying is this is just our thoughts. Don't come and do any craziness in the comment section. Just say your piece and keep it true. You know what I'm saying? We ain't here for all that. All right. No, I appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you guys very, very soon. And we'll see you for another episode.